Please help me welcome an incredible patriot, an incredible man, an incredible father, Navy SEAL Brent Gleeson.
Thank you. Love you, man. All right, thank you so much. Thank you. All right, how are you guys doing this afternoon? Everybody feeling good? Let's start over, people. I've been given permission to have you do burpees and push-ups until morale improves in here. How are you guys doing this afternoon? You guys energized? Awake? All right, now I ask because I want to make sure I'm not getting the sleepy after-lunch crowd. The reason I ask is because in the early days of SEAL training, you spend a hell of a lot of time in the classroom. But of course, you do so on very little sleep. So the instructors would keep these large metal bathtubs full of ice water in the back of the room. Guess what those were for? If you got caught falling asleep, nodding off, not paying attention, you got to sit chest deep in a bathtub full of ice water for the rest of class. Not for 1 or 2 minutes, not a head dunk, for the rest of class. And let me tell you, people, it's really hard to learn anything when you're shivering your ass off, reaching hypothermic levels in a bathtub full of ice water. Now, how in the hell do I know that? So unfortunately, I spent many days in those ice baths, clearly not learning from my mistakes the first time around. Now, in light of being fully transparent with all of you, I did, in fact, request ice baths for this event. Fortunately for you, my request was denied, so you guys are off the hook. But I'll be watching you. In all seriousness, thank you so much. Thank you, PRMG, and thank you, all of you. It's an honor and pleasure to be here with all of you this afternoon. So when a SEAL platoon is on patrol in enemy territory or sneaking into an enemy compound, the man in front is the point man. He's taking point, leading his team into what we call VUCA environments. And yes, that's one of the hundreds, if not thousands, of acronyms we live by in the United States military. It refers to the volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous environments that we operate in. That acronym is now widely used in the global business community. It too, of course, referring to the more transformative, disruptive, fast-paced, ever-changing, volatile, and uncertain global business landscape that we're all a part of today. Especially high-performance organizations like yours in a very dynamic industry, organizations that have overcome a lot of adversity over the past 10 years, organizations with great leaders like each of you, that despite being in the face of adversity, you still have a strong passion, a vision to lead change, to compete and win in this modern 21st century business environment. And in fact, in the 2017 KPMG CEO Outlook survey, 65% of CEOs now see change and disruption as an opportunity as opposed to a threat, which is why learning how to better lead change and navigate organizational transformation is more important than ever. And even more excitingly, 74% at least claim that they're going to be investing a lot more time and resources in improving their organizational culture and their employee engagement in order to better navigate change to take advantage of disruption. Now, of course, I can draw a simple military correlation here. Another great brand, an organization that has stood the test of time, navigated much adversity over the past few years, Naval Special Warfare, home to United States Navy SEAL teams, widely known to be the most elite and feared special operations fighting force in the entire world. Yet, like you, we've been in a constant state of disruption and transformation in our post-9/11 reality. And how have we continued to navigate change and adapt in order to sustain the fight and defeat a very dangerous and decentralized enemy? In large part, it's due to our very well-defined and distinct organizational culture, a culture founded on the principles of leadership at all levels, adaptability. We too see disruption as an advantage. We lean into change. Extremely high levels of accountability and trust woven into the fabric of that culture, resilience, and a relentless never-quit attitude. The secret to our success is that our culture and people practices perfectly match our strategic vision to win. And that's what we're here to talk about today. Leveraging culture and the engagement of as many people in your organization as possible to lead change, navigate disruption, and achieve winning results. And that winning mindset, that winning leadership mindset of perseverance and determination, always reminds me of a great quote by Martin Luther King Jr. that says, "If you can't fly, you run. And if you can't run, you walk. And if you can't walk, you crawl. No matter what, you keep moving forward. In the SEAL teams, we have an ethos, a creed that embodies our culture and our core values. And a similar line from that ethos states, I will not quit. I persevere and thrive in adversity. And if knocked down, I will get back up every time. I am never out of the fight. And that, my friends, that winning mindset is how each of you as leaders in your organizations can continue to take point, to navigate change and disruption, and what it means for all of us as leaders in our organizations to have the winning mindset of being all in all the time. All right, good afternoon. What do you think? If that doesn't scream America, I don't know what does. Does that remind you of your workplace environment? Maybe back in 2008 when the shit was really hitting the fan? Now, being all in all the time is a philosophy we hold dear in the SEAL teams. Simply put, it's about persistence and determination, giving everything we do, everything we've got, and nothing less. So in December of 1999, I first made my decision to be all in. As that sometimes happens in a fit of youthful foolishness and indiscretion, I quit my corporate finance job and joined the United States Navy with a dream of becoming a SEAL. A decision that would forever change my life and set me on the path that I'm on today. So this afternoon, I would like to share a little bit of that journey with you, share some stories from training, from the battlefield, so to speak. But more importantly, I want to talk about those experiences as a combat SEAL and how I've applied those experiences to building award-winning organizations in the business world. We'll talk about the principles of leadership at all levels, aligning culture with strategy and desired business results, instilling the disciplines of accountability and trust in your organization to better navigate change and continue to achieve winning results as an organization. And hopefully give you guys some insights, some key takeaways, and God willing, maybe even a little bit of inspiration you can apply to your own lives, both personally and professionally. So let's dive in, shall we? Do you guys want to do burpees? One more time, let's dive in, shall we? All right, now as a bit of background, as was mentioned earlier, I grew up in the great nation of Texas. Do we have any Texans in the room? All right, front row, some other ones, thank you. Sometimes that backfires. Not one damn Texan in the whole audience, and I have to pity the entire audience. Little fun fact for you people, at any given time, about 1/3 of all SEALs are from where, sir? You're damn right. And I know you people come from very data-driven organizations. Please do not go fact-check that data. I'm pretty sure it's accurate. I really, really want to believe it. So I grew up in Dallas. I was a swimmer in high school, played rugby in college, where I attended Southern Methodist University, spent some time at Oxford University, ultimately earning degrees in finance and economics. So naturally, upon graduation, I took a job as a financial analyst at the Trammell Crow Company in their retail division. And during that time, I had a fraternity brother who was a year behind me in school. He was now a senior. Now, he was, in fact, one of these guys who had a burning desire and a passion and an unrealistic vision, let's face it, of becoming a United States Navy SEAL. Something I thought, again, was a bit silly, a little unrealistic, but as a way to stay fit and help a friend prepare for an arduous journey, we decided to start training together. So nights, weekends, running, swimming, calisthenics, running marathons, doing everything we could to help him prepare for this journey. So we started spending a lot of time together and obviously having dialogue about this journey, and started learning a bit more about the history and culture of the Naval Special Warfare community, what it potentially could mean to be part of that type of elite high-performance organization. I read a book, another book, and some more books. We started training harder and harder, and naturally, over time, my close friends and family and colleagues started realizing this growing passion for my own possible dynamic career path shift. So one day I was talking to my twin brother. I'll preface this by saying we're fraternal twins. We are literally polar opposites in every possible way. But I did want to run this crazy idea by him before running it up the chain of command to mom and dad, who would no doubt be a little shocked by this dynamic career path shift. They were just happy I had a job after college. And you know what he was doing? Supportive twin brother that he is? That's right, he was laughing his ass off. He was like, Brent, once he finally composed himself, he's like, Brent, I gotta be honest, I don't really even know that much about it, but I know one thing for sure. There is no way in hell you could ever do that. I mean, let's break it down here. These guys, well, they're supposed to be tough, right? Like, I don't know, world-class warriors or something? You, my friend, are not tough at all. I mean, let's face it. Well, you have allergies, really bad allergies, and asthma. You're wheezing right now. There's tissue wadded up on the floor of here. Is that yours? You wear those thick contact lenses? You can't see shit. How's that going to work? And remember last week, you thought I forgot about this, but remember last week when you cried a little bit during that TV commercial? Again, don't know much about it, but I am pretty certain that seals are not nerdy, sniffly, emotional guys that cry during a Clorox bleach commercial. So let's just forget we had this conversation and stick with your nerdy finance job. Well, now I knew I had to do it, right? This is a true story. Literally a week later, I quit my job, and my buddy and I moved up to Crested Butte, Colorado, where we'd train for an additional 6 months for 5 hours a day at 10,000 feet altitude to get into the best physical condition that we could. Then in early 2000, joined the Navy, and after a couple months of basic training, was on a plane headed out to sunny San Diego, California, where we would begin our journey. And I can tell you with exact certainty and clarity, like it was yesterday, I have never been more nervous in my entire life than the day I stepped foot into the lobby of the Naval Special Warfare Training Center. Because it is a very scary and depressing thing, my friends, knowing for a fact that your life is going to be pure hell and misery for many months to come. But of course, at this point, there was no turning back. I had to be all in. Now let's put our talent acquisition and employee retention hats on for a minute. A little fun fact for you guys, it takes 18 months and costs over $3 million to train and acquire one SEAL. And that doesn't count the years of arduous training and millions of dollars spent on you once you make it to a team. That 18 months is broken into various segments. The first segment is 6 months long and called BUDS. Now, one of our acronyms, it stands for Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL. If any of you have seen the SEAL movie Lone Survivor, unfortunately based on a true story, the opening scenes are actually from a Discovery Channel documentary about BUDS Class 235. We run 6 classes a year, so every 2 months. I followed them in class 234, or they were 234, I followed them in 235. I was present for all this filming, and this will give you guys just a teeny tiny taste of what BUDS is all about. Doesn't that look fun? Does anybody feel like they missed their calling in life? No? I can't see, no hands raised. Okay, got it. Anybody in here 30 or younger, come see me afterwards. You guys didn't think I was going to use this as a recruiting platform, did you? But we need more SEALs. Now, the funny thing is what you just saw was a depiction of only the first 3 weeks of BUDS. BUDS has a 90% failure rate of highly capable candidates. So imagine those types of activities going on for months and months at a time, and the irony is the training actually becomes more difficult after that. Now, bearing that in mind, this is a picture of my graduating class, intentionally grainy to preserve people's identities. So let's do the math really quick. About 1,000 guys applied for our BUDS class. Of that 1,000, only 250 were selected to begin training. Of that 250, only 23 graduated, earning the right to wear the SEAL Trident pin. The interesting thing about this pin is that it's the only emblem in the United States military where the eagle's head is fully bowed in memory of those that forged the path ahead of us. Another line from the SEAL ethos states, "My trident is a symbol of honor and heritage. Bestowed upon me by the heroes that have gone before, it embodies the trust of those that I am bound to defend. It is a privilege I must earn every day." Your roles as leaders in your organizations, regardless of rank, title, or tenure, is a privilege each of you, all of us, have to earn every single day, simply by asking ourselves, what will I do today to be the best, most valuable, and effective member of this organization that I can be? Or as we say in the SEAL teams, how will I earn my trident today? So after several combat tours, I left the SEAL teams, went to graduate school, and started my first company. I mean, ironically, my first company was a new home finding search engine, basically an early version of Trulia. And of course, we were riding that bubble all the way to the top. We knew that ride would never end. Raised a couple $1 million, and we knew it was just going to be glory days forever. You guys remember that time? Right? And then the shit hit the fan. We were doubling in size every year, which is great. Revenue, headcount growth, attracting new clients, generating great home buyer leads for the developers and home builders and home sellers, mortgage banks. We were blessed with growth, but we also dealt with a lot of the inevitable growing pains that rapidly growing companies face in ever-changing industries. And then, of course, 2008 happened, and like many of you in this room, we got hammered. Hammered. There was a lot of fear, a lot of crying, mostly by me. And it really wasn't until I leaned back and reflected on the principles that forge SEAL culture, how we build high-performance teams that can navigate adversity, the most elite teams in the world, and started really applying those principles and core values, instilling those into that organization. And the follow-on companies that I started, it wasn't until then that those organizations started to become healthier, started to be more nimble and adaptive and better navigate change and adversity in the marketplace, and eventually come out stronger on the other side. So earlier I mentioned we'd be talking a bit about how all of us in this room can leverage those principles, those SEAL principles of leadership at all levels, adaptability, aligning culture with your strategic vision and desired business results, instilling disciplines of accountability and trust into the fabric of your culture to better lead change and achieve winning results. So like anything else in any environment, whether it be military, sports, or business, it all starts with building a winning culture. As SEALs, we train for war and we fight to win. Failure to execute our job functions is obviously not an option. And that winning mindset of accountability, discipline, and trust is how we build winning teams that are greater than the sum of their parts. So as you reflect on that, when you think about that in your organization, how important is culture? How important is employee engagement and participation when you're navigating change and adversity in the marketplace? According to the 2017 Deloitte Global Human Capital Trends Report, CEOs from different types of organizations all over the world that were surveyed cited the areas of culture, employee retention, and employee engagement as urgent, meaning areas in their organizations they need to address immediately in order to navigate change and adversity in the marketplace and continue to grow and compete and win in their sectors. Another key data point that came from that was that today's workforce, and many of us know this already, especially the younger generations, they care deeply about the culture, the vision, and the purpose, the why of the organizations they seek to join. And they should. But let's face it, unemployment's at an all-time low. There's a seemingly endless array of job opportunities for today's workforce. But again, according to Global Gallup research from last year, 67% of the workforce can be defined as disengaged. Only 15% of the workforce is engaged, meaning we're emotionally connected to our jobs. We understand how our job functions and daily tasks and duties drive mission success for the organization, for the customer. And the interesting thing about this 67%, many of you have experienced this, whether you realize it or not, is they're oftentimes hard to identify in our organizations. You know, that the people who come in, they clock out, they're relatively satisfied in their role, but they don't have a go above and beyond mental attitude. They're not collaborators, they're not team players. They don't give everything they've got, they're not all in. And that, of course, leaves the 18% who are actively disengaged, and we've all worked with these people. These are the people that are actually working against the organization, those toxic people, especially during times of change and adversity and fear in the marketplace. And that's why there's a great opportunity with that disengaged workforce when we as leaders in our organizations can continue to better learn the art and science of defining and managing culture, protecting that culture, aligning culture with your strategic objectives and desired business results, and prioritizing the engagement of everybody in the organization. Another fundamental reason that managing culture and prioritizing employee engagement is more important than it's ever been before, like we reflected on at the beginning of the presentation. More CEOs are investing in culture and engagement because those are the two most powerful tools in any organization, whether you're a 3-person shop or a 300-person shop. They're your most powerful tools for navigating change, leading organizational transformation, something I think everybody in this room understands more than most audiences that I experience, something we all have to better learn how to master just to survive and thrive in the 21st century. Now, naturally, I can draw another simple military correlation here. We essentially entered these conflicts, I'm talking about predominantly the special operations community, but it permeates the military in its entirety. We entered these conflicts as essentially a very slow-moving, overmanaged, underled, very siloed, both vertically and horizontally. We're essentially a slow-moving 20th century organization. And we quickly realized that to move at the speed these wars required, we had to start redesigning our systems, our processes, our structures, our internal, external communication strategies, and eventually transforming our leadership mindsets and our organizational culture in order to sustain the fight and defeat a very dangerous and decentralized enemy. So we too had to become more nimble, more adaptive, and more decentralized. In my new book, TakingPoint, which was mentioned earlier, I dive deep into the tools and methodologies and strategies that organizations and leaders and managers can use to better navigate change in the marketplace and organizational transformation internally. It's broken into 3 parts. The first part is about building a change culture. Essentially, this is about, especially as leaders and managers and organizations, really understanding and identifying what is the culture we have today in our organization. Does that culture mesh well with our strategic vision and desired results? Auditing that culture, understanding what are the strengths of that culture that can be prime movers for driving change and positive growth? What are maybe some of the weaknesses that are limitations that will stand in the way of growth and transformation? And the 2 most important cultural pillars that I focus on are internal and external trust and accountability. And not just from a high level, but learning how to measure and improve each and understanding their economic and financial implications on any organization. And we'll talk more about each of those in a minute. The next part is about preparing for the change battle. This starts at the top like anything else, and sometimes when our organizations are facing change, whether that's driven externally by market factors, internally by organizational shifts that we have to make just to stay competitive, sometimes that starts with a little bit of a mindset transformation. As you can imagine, when I shifted from being a financial analyst at Trammell Crow Company, it was a major mindset transformation that I had to go through to align my mindset with achieving that lofty goal, that new reality. And when we're driving our organizations forward as leaders, especially amidst adversity and constantly changing things in the marketplace, we have to make sure that as leaders, our mindset aligns with our strategic vision and the desired results we need to get to remain competitive. You have that mission plan, whether it's the mission planning process for your entire organization or smaller iterative projects that you're undertaking. It's imperative to involve as many people as possible, like we do in the SEAL mission planning process. Involve as many people as possible in your organization in that mission planning process. When you do that, you're accomplishing 2 things simultaneously. 1, you're gathering valuable ground intelligence, data, information, sometimes customer feedback that gets caught in those vertical silos, information critical for making informed decisions on that mission plan. But even more importantly, you're gaining buy-in because everyone in the organization has a voice in what that mission plan looks like. Then you can navigate the obstacles together and celebrate the wins as a team. And when you have that vision for your organization, especially during times of change, this is more important than ever, communicating that powerful and an aligned vision early, often, and always throughout the entire journey. And then, of course, the ultimate fulfillment of that vision, winning the change fight. Now, unfortunately, according to McKinsey & Company data from last year, actually 70% of organizational change efforts fall significantly short of meeting their objectives, in large part due to cultures that don't mesh well with a strategy, lower levels of trust and internal accountability in the organization, sometimes leadership mindset that don't really mesh well with the vision of what they're trying to accomplish. Sometimes organizations gain significant momentum throughout that transformation journey during times of uncertainty, only to still fall short of meeting those objectives due to sometimes waning buy-in and participation, even from the early adopters, those change evangelists, as I refer to them in the book, those engaged employees who you can leverage to really drive that message home with everybody in the organization. But as you guys know and have experienced over the years, sometimes navigating change, organizational change, business transformation, usually takes a little bit longer and has more significant hard and soft costs than we anticipate. So we sometimes, even as leaders, and I've done this myself, we kind of regress back into our bunker and kind of start saying, well, let's just kind of wait and see what happens. This is a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. We start experiencing what I refer to as change battle fatigue. Or sometimes, and I've made this mistake as a business leader myself, we become undisciplined. We have all these new competing priorities. We're trying to transform the organization to remain competitive. We pile new priorities on top of those priorities. We burn out the team. Then we as leaders get distracted by other opportunities, these shiny things over here and over here, opportunities that don't necessarily align with the mission plan or the vision of the organization. And sometimes it's missing the mark on taking that opportunity to build a truly resilient organization. You guys know about resilience more than most audiences, and PRMG is actually a case study in resilience in the last chapter in the book, about how you guys have overcome all the adversity since 2008. So we as leaders have to take that opportunity during times of change to build resilience into the organization, because of course it's not just always about reactively dealing with the changes we face today, but building a strong, nimble, and adaptive team that has the mindset, the training, and resources to navigate the changes we'll all face tomorrow. During times of change, especially as leaders, accountability matters as much as anything else we do on the job. Like anything else, that starts at the top. The discipline of accountability starts on day one of SEAL training, and as we say, our training is never complete. Another line from the SEAL ethos says, in the absence of orders, I will take charge, lead my team, and accomplish our mission. I lead by example in all situations. So that discipline of accountability starts on day one, and our training is never complete. So the very first week of training, throughout the entire 18-month process, we perform a weekly, what I refer to as an accountability drill. We're teaching ourselves and our peers to hold each other to the highest level of standard. Simply put, it's an anonymous peer review process. We perform every Friday, wonderful evolution called the top 5, bottom 5. So every Friday afternoon, before being secured for the weekend, the instructors will bring the class into the classroom. They'll sit you down and pass out blank sheets of paper. On that paper are 5 lines on the top and 5 lines on the bottom. And you are instructed to anonymously rank who you believe the top 5 performers are in the class and who you believe the bottom 5 performers are in the class. And I know what some of you might be thinking. No, unfortunately, they never tell you who the top 5 are, because people, that would be positive reinforcement. And we do not deal in positive reinforcement in SEAL training. We deal only in negative reinforcement. So what they do is they tally up all the names in the bottom 5 and post them right there on the whiteboard next to the door. Not a great way to start your weekend. Not a big motivating factor. The one name most frequently listed in the bottom 5 every Friday is immediately ejected from training, right then and there. No ifs, ands, or buts, no appealing to the empathies of the human resources department. Because people, we do not have a human resources department in SEAL training. I always put that in the complaint box. This shit sucks. Who do I complain to? I'm kidding. You think we had a complaint box? You got wet and sandy, that's what you got. We take this discipline of accountability with us to the battlefield. When you're on patrol in enemy territory, each and every man is accountable for owning a field of fire, the area you're responsible for protecting should the enemy attack. And that's the great thing about the notion of accountability as a part of an organizational culture. When you can at least strive for 100% accountability across the board, in theory, nobody has to worry about anything outside of their field of fire, because everybody is executing their duties and responsibilities to the best of their ability. So what does this look like in practice? What does that mean for the financial health of an organization? One of my clients is a San Diego-based medical device and healthcare company. And many years ago, under a different brand name, they were essentially a failing entity, known on Wall Street to be well-intentioned, but horrendous at execution. They were the most leveraged business in their space at $350 million in revenue and $550 million in debt, which is kind of not how you want your balance sheet to look. Stock price was plummeting. So as a last-ditch effort, the board brought in a new CEO. It was their 4th CEO in 5 years. So you can imagine the murmurings among the troops. Here we go again, another failed attempt to save this sinking ship. He brought with him a totally different leadership mindset and approach. Now, while he did put together a transformation task force, as I call it, a committee to integrate the typical change management tactics and strategies, what he did as the senior leader, as the CEO, he led a culture transformation with the goal of achieving accountability across the board, of instilling accountability in their organization. And long story short, over the next 3 years, by leading a culture-driven transformation effort with the goal of achieving 100% accountability, their stock price went from 23 cents a share to $48.50 a share. They started growing at 15% a year, which is unheard of in their space. They later sold to another healthcare giant for a 1,700% return on equity investment, and later spun off to be the healthcare giant they are today. All predominantly by leading a culture-driven transformation aligned with achieving specific business results to achieve accountability across the board. So what does this look like in practice? How do you achieve a culture of accountability, and how do you really align your organizational culture, regardless of the size of your organization, with the results you need to be getting? It can be defined here in this results pyramid. It has 4 tiers. At the top, you see the R1 versus R2 results. The R1 results are the results your organization is getting today. And of course, the R2 results are the desired results, the results you need to be getting if you really want to fulfill the vision of your organization. The next tier there is the actions. What are the actions that we, as leaders in our organizations and the entire team, need to proactively take to achieve the R2 desired results? And then, of course, what are the values and beliefs and behaviors that need to be promoted across the board in the organization so we all take those actions that get the results? And then, of course, what are the fundamental, foundational cultural experiences, as we refer to them, in the organization that instill those beliefs and core values that drive us to take the actions to get those desired results. So for example, one of our core number one priorities, our R2 results in the SEAL teams, of course, is readiness, being ready to go into battle at a moment's notice. In my first tour in Iraq, we did 184 combat missions in 6 months. Sometimes we did 2 or 3 in a night. So you can imagine how important readiness is. Number one priority. So of course, that means that one of the predominant actions that needs to be taken is ensuring that gear and weapons are prepped, organized, and ready to go into battle whenever we need them. So of course, the belief, the behavior that needs to be held is that preparedness is a number one priority. And some of the rituals, the cultural experiences that we undergo that instills that belief are based on the hierarchy and order in which we prepare our gear and weapons in order to ensure readiness. It doesn't matter if you've been in a combat mission out in the field for 4 days with no sleep. As soon as you get home, you drop your gear, perform an after-action review, then you immediately go into gear and weapons preparation. You might have a mission coming up the next 30 minutes. But the hierarchy is that cultural experience that instills the belief that team readiness is more important than my own personal desires. So we start with team-level gear, weapons preparation, then troop-level gear and weapons preparation, then your own gear, and then you. Then and only then do you go take a shower, get a bite to eat, or go to sleep. That is a cultural experience that instills the belief that the team's needs come before my own in order to ensure that desired result. So when you reflect on that in your organization, what cultural experiences do you have that really support your core values? And those values, how do those values align with driving the actions that people need to take to get those desired results? And maybe what are some of the cultural experiences that detract from that? That's how you build a culture of accountability. That's how you align culture with strategy. And one of the misconceptions about the notion of accountability is that it's just a list of consequences for when we make mistakes. It's really more so about building a culture of trust, where transparent feedback and communication can flow seamlessly across the organization, positive, productive behaviors that align with the culture and values that drive results are publicly rewarded on a regular basis. And I think we can all agree as leaders in our organizations, especially during times of change and adversity, we must hold ourselves to the highest standard, the highest level of accountability at all times, on and off the battlefield. Let these pictures sink in for 1 second. Studies actually show that interacting with animals can actually improve human social interaction in the areas of trust and empathy. And yes, that is a monkey on my head. His name is Iron Mike. Clearly, my last tour was in Africa. I found him on the side of the road. His mom had been injured. I raised him from infancy. He would sleep in my cot with me. I'm not sure how hygienic this was, but he would sleep in my cot with me and my armpit around my chest. And in the morning, how many of you have kids? Yeah, pretty much everybody in here. In the morning, he would climb up onto my chin, grab my eyelashes, and rip my eyes open. Be like, "Hey, Dad, it's time to eat." Any of your kids do that? Mine do. I still do it. Youngest one's 2. And yes, that is a dog attached to my body as I jump out of the back of that plane. You know what he's thinking right now? A man's best friend, my ass. Not a happy camper. I don't know what it is about plummeting 130 miles an hour towards the face of the earth, but it takes a little getting used to. Now, I know we have a lot of dog lovers in the room. Please do not worry. These dogs get treated better than we do. They get their own room at the W when we're on a training trip. They get better food than we do. I wanted to tell you a story about trust from my Buds class's Hell Week experience. Hell Week is the brutal crucible that all SEALs go through in the early stage of training. You saw some of it in the video, but few pass. So Hell Week starts on a Sunday morning or Sunday afternoon and ends on a Friday afternoon. And the great thing about that Sunday is the class will report to the classroom with a couple of required items in their possession, basically a water bottle and your clothes. The beauty of that day is, and this is by design, that the students have no idea when Hell Week will commence. They do this on purpose. The anxiety, the anguish is literally eating away at the core of your soul. You know it's probably going to be the worst week of your entire life, and yet the paradox is you just want it to begin, to get it over with. So as a way to motivate us, our class leader, who's going to be the highest ranking officer in the class, he read to us, and some of you probably remember this from your studies in school, he read to us the St. Crispin's Day speech from William Shakespeare's Henry V. He read aloud those famed lines that say, "We few, we happy few, we band of brothers. For he today that sheds his blood with me shall be my brother." John died 4 days later. We were about 4.5 days into Hell Week. There was 23 of us left out of the 250. We were in full gear, no fins, in an Olympic-sized swimming pool doing relay races. We were performing an evolution called the Caterpillar Race, which is not as cute as it sounds. Your boat crew of 7 guys is in the water, in a line, on your backs, swimming backwards like this, except I would have my legs wrapped around the waist of the guy in front of me. His legs are wrapped around the waist of the guy in front of him, and so on and so forth. Now, you can picture this. Even fresh, this is a very difficult evolution to execute properly, to keep your head above water, much less beat the other boat crew to the other side of the pool. Everything in Hell Week is a race. 4 days into Hell Week, your body is so brutally beaten, you're hallucinating so violently, that it's basically more of a evolution in controlled drowning. Long story short, John actually suffered a massive heart failure and drowned in the pool right next to us. But again, we were hallucinating so violently, we had no idea what was going on at the time. So they got us out of the pool, ran us back across the street, put us in a classroom. We waited for a couple hours, and eventually the doors open and the instructor staff walk in. With them was the commanding officer of BUDS at the time, which we thought was a bit odd. He wasted no time. He walked straight to the front of the classroom, turned around to address the class. He said, "Gentlemen, listen up. Lieutenant John Scott was pronounced dead at 1 a.m. Lieutenant Parado, you're taking over." And he said it with that level of candor, I believe purposefully. He paused for a minute to let that sink in. And then he broke that silence by saying, "Gentlemen, get used to this feeling that you have right now. This is what it's going to be like in the teams. You're going to lose teammates. You have to learn to control your emotions, stay focused on the mission, and trust each other as a team no matter what happens." And there's a bit of odd foreshadowing. He had no idea how right he really was. Literally 4 months later, 2 days before we started advanced training, was 9/11. And that's when we all knew we'd be going to war, where, of course, trust would be at a premium. Now, when we think about the notion of trust in our own organizations, predominantly I'm talking about internal trust, the trust we have amongst us and our peers, the trust we build with our customers. How important is trust? Is like culture and accountability and things like that? Are these soft side management strategies and nice to have social variables? Or like accountability, does trust, as the bedrock of your culture, drive the financial health of an organization? Human Capital Institute performed a study called Building Trust 2013, Workforce Trends Driving High Performance. And a key data point that came from that survey was that employees working in what they defined as high-performance organizations, essentially companies that continue steady growth and building positive shareholder value, those employees believed their peers, their leaders, their managers to be highly trustworthy individuals. People who fulfill promises, walk the walk, talk the talk, words match actions consistently day in and day out. People who live the core values of the organization on and off the battlefield. And the 2 areas that trust affects most in any organization are productivity and engagement. Since we already established that sometimes engagement can be a bit of a problem, but a great opportunity, one might theorize that in many organizations out there, that trust is either not valued, or more typically from what I've seen, it's just not properly managed or measured. And according to more Gallup research from last year, employee disengagement in the United States, in large part due to low levels of trust and accountability and discipline of leadership, costs us upwards of $550 billion a year in lost productivity. So I think we can conclude that the notions of culture, aligning culture with strategy, the fundamental disciplines of accountability and trust in an organization are not soft-side management strategies and nice-to-have social variables, but they drive the financial health and growth of any organization and help us more successfully navigate change and disruption in the marketplace. In closing, I wanted to share a brief poem with you guys. This poem is authored by a chief Tecumseh, a Shawnee chief from the War of 1812. This poem is widely shared in the Naval Special Warfare community. It really captures our mindset, how we approach life and work, how we honor our fallen. And although this poem is titled Death Song, it's really much more a metaphor for life. World, a little bit better place than we found it. So ladies and gentlemen, as you step forth onto your battlefield, leading positive change in your organization and the industry, setting and achieving lofty goals and pursuing excellence and innovation in all that you do, remember these 3 things. Get comfortable being uncomfortable. Push the confines and boundaries of your comfort zone every chance you get. The more you do, the wider that area becomes. And in my experience, it's outside of our comfort zone where the magic really happens. Next, remember, as we say in the SEAL teams, and people, we have a hell of a lot of sayings. Remember that the only easy day was yesterday. There are no truly easy days for high-performance teams and organizations and leaders pursuing an existence of excellence. Life is full of challenges. We simply have to face those challenges head-on, controlling what we can and ignoring what we can't. And lastly, my friends, I ask that you be all in all the time. Ask yourself every day, at what level am I willing to participate on this team and in this life? And no matter what challenges life throws your way, whether they be at work, the dynamics of the industry, at home, your spouse, kids, even things like divorce, illness, finances, no matter what it is, not if, but when you get knocked down, get back up every time and never, ever be out of the fight. God bless you guys. Good luck in your journey. Thank you. I want to say, if this isn't a sales pitch, it's a sales pitch. If you enjoyed the presentation, if you haven't read the book, I think you would really enjoy it. There's some embarrassing stories in there about me, of course. I mean, who falls into a cesspool 2 minutes into a combat mission? It's supposed to last 2 hours and last 24 hours. This guy. Anyways, chapter 8. No, the one thing I wanted to point out, though, is I think you'll enjoy the book, but more importantly, the majority of proceeds support the SEAL Family Foundation, and we support the families of our active duty and fallen SEALs. So, again, God bless you guys. Enjoy the rest of the afternoon. Thank you.